He hadn't seen her in 10 years. The woman who once promised forever was now sitting just a few tables away, elegant, powerful, surrounded by assistants and cameras. Michael, a struggling single dad working 2 jobs to keep his little girl fed, froze as he recognized her. She was no longer the shy college girl he fell in love with. She was Elena Rivera, the millionaire CEO whose face graced every business magazine in the city. But as their eyes met across the cafe, something flickered, guilt, longing, or fate. He didn't know that this moment would change everything. The cafe smelled of roasted coffee beans and winter rain. Michael sat in the corner, his old flannel jacket soaked at the shoulders, his little daughter Lily sipping hot chocolate beside him. He came here every evening after his shift at the auto shop, not for the coffee but for the warmth and Wi-Fi so Lily could watch cartoons while he searched for side jobs online. Across the room the door opened with a quiet chime. Conversations paused. A woman stepped in, tall, composed, her navy trench coat spotless, her diamond watch gleaming under the lights. Helena Rivera, CEO of Rivera Tech Industries. She looked out of place in this humble cafe, but her gaze was searching for something more than caffeine. Michael's heart clenched. The last time he saw her was at the airport 10 years ago when she chose her scholarship abroad over their future together. He didn't blame her. He was just a mechanic's apprentice, then broke and lost. But as he looked at her now, sitting just a few feet away typing on her sleek laptop, he couldn't ignore the ache that never really faded. Lily tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, she looks like the lady from the billboard," she whispered, pointing innocently. Michael smiled weakly. "Yeah, she kind of does." Helena lifted her eyes and froze. For a brief, fragile second, time stopped. Her eyes softened, recognizing him instantly. The scruffy man in the corner wasn't just another customer. It was the boy she once loved, now a father, worn but still holding that same gentle sadness in his eyes. And in that silent moment both realized the past wasn't done with them yet. Helena sat still for a moment, her manicured fingers frozen over the keyboard. The cafe's hum faded into a blur as her eyes lingered on Michael. She could see the exhaustion in the slump of his shoulders, the oil stains that never truly washed out of his nails, the careful way he guarded the little girl beside him, like she was his entire world. She wanted to speak, to cross the room and bridge 10 years of silence. But her chest tightened. How do you greet the person you left behind to chase a dream that made you rich but hollow? Michael glanced away first. Maybe she didn't remember. Maybe she didn't want to. He focused on Lily, helping her wipe chocolate from her chin, pretending his hands didn't tremble. The faint hum of her voice, the way she giggled, they were his lifeline, his reason to survive the long nights. Then a soft voice broke the silence. "Michael." He looked up and there she was standing before him. Her designer heels clicked softly against the wooden floor, yet somehow she seemed human again. Nervous, unsure, he stood awkwardly, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Helena, wow, it's been a long time." She smiled faintly, though her eyes darted toward Lily, curious but warm. "She's beautiful," Helena said softly. "How old?" 6, Michael replied. "And yeah, she's everything." Helena hesitated, wanting to ask about Lily's mother, but something in his tone warned her not to. So instead she offered to buy them both lunch, a small gesture, a start. As they sat together, the world outside turned gray with rain. Michael spoke little, listening as Elena described her company's success, her travels, her charities. It all sounded perfect, too perfect. But when he looked closely, he noticed the faint shadows beneath her eyes, loneliness painted in the spaces between her words. When Lily excused herself to the restroom, silence filled the table again. That's when Elena spoke quietly. "You know, I thought money would fix everything. But sometimes it just builds bigger cages. Michael nodded, understanding more than she knew. Yeah, cages look different for everyone, I guess. There was pain behind his calm, years of struggle hidden behind calloused hands. She wanted to reach out to apologize for leaving him behind, for choosing ambition over love. But before she could, her phone buzzed. A call. She glanced at the screen. Her fiancé. A merger deal waiting for her input. A reminder of the world she lived in now. She silenced the phone. For the first time in years she didn't want to answer. When Lily returned, Elena offered to drive them home. The storm outside had grown fierce, wind slicing through the night. Michael hesitated but accepted. On the drive, laughter filled the car, small genuine moments that reminded them both of something they'd lost long ago. Then, just as they neared the city's edge, the car jolted, tires screeched. A flash of movement and then the crash. Rain poured down on twisted metal and shattered glass. Michael's first thought wasn't himself, it was Lily, and Elena, trapped bleeding, whispering his name. Everything changed in an instant. The world around them dissolved into chaos, sirens shouting, the smell of gasoline thick in the rain-soaked air. The car lay on its side in the ditch, its headlights flickering weakly through the downpour. Michael's ears rang, his vision blurred, but one sound cut through everything. Lily's terrified cry. He twisted, ignoring the pain slicing through his ribs. She was wedged between the seats, sobbing but alive. Relief flooded him like lightning. "Daddy," he forced himself free, glass tearing into his palms, muscles screaming. He pulled Lily close, shielding her from the storm. Then he saw Elena. She was half-conscious, her blonde hair dark with blood, her breath shallow. Her hand trembled as she reached toward him. "Michael," she whispered, voice barely audible over the thunder. He crawled back into the wreckage, bracing against the twisted frame. Rainwater pooled around them, and for a moment he didn't see a CEO. He saw the girl he once loved, broken, human, fragile. "Don't move," he said softly, his voice shaking. "You're going to be okay." Helena's eyes fluttered open, searching his face, guilt, sorrow, and something else flickering in them. "I shouldn't have left," she breathed. "You were the only thing real." Michael's heart clenched. He wanted to tell her it didn't matter, that forgiveness was all that was left, but the sound of a nearby explosion cut him off. The car's fuel line was leaking, every second counted. Adrenaline surged through him. He tore his jacket, wrapped it around her shoulders, and hoisted her out as the rain lashed harder. His body moved on instinct, powered by something primal, love maybe, or the desperate will to protect what was once lost. They stumbled up the muddy hill just as the car ignited behind them, a burst of fire lighting up the night sky. The reflection burned across Michael's eyes like a memory he'd never forget. Paramedics arrived minutes later, their flashing lights painting everything red and white. As they loaded Elena onto the stretcher, her fingers found his hand again, squeezing weakly. Through cracked lips she whispered one final thing, a secret that would change everything about who she was and what she'd been running from. And when he heard it, Michael froze, his heart stopped. Because it wasn't just a confession, it was a revelation. Hours later the storm had passed. The night's chaos melted into the low hum of hospital machines and the faint smell of antiseptic. Michael sat by the window, his clothes still damp, his hands bandaged. Lily slept curled on the couch, her little fingers clutching his jacket. He watched the sunrise spill across the horizon, orange, gold, and soft pink bleeding into the gray sky, and for the first time in years he let himself breathe. Then the door creaked open. A nurse entered quietly, gesturing toward the bed. "She's awake," she said. Helena looked pale, fragile, but her eyes, those same eyes that once lit up their small-town nights, held a steadiness that wasn't there before. Michael sat beside her, unsure where to begin.
Her hand trembled slightly as she reached out. "I never stopped loving you," she whispered. "But there was something I had to protect, something bigger than us." He frowned, confused, until she nodded toward the small silver locket that now rested on her chest. She opened it with shaking fingers. Inside was a faded photograph, a younger Elena holding a baby. Michael's breath caught. The child in the photo had his eyes. "She's yours," Elena said, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I was threatened back then. They told me if I didn't disappear, you and our child would never be safe. I thought staying away was the only way to protect you both." The room went silent, the kind of silence that stretches between heartbreak and healing. Michael's hand tightened around hers. All the years of anger, loss, and confusion melted into something gentler, grief laced with forgiveness. In that moment he realized it wasn't fate that had reunited them. It was life's strange, relentless way of bringing unfinished stories back to the surface, no matter how deeply they'd been buried. When Elena was discharged days later, she walked out of the hospital beside Michael and Lily. The three of them stood in the crisp morning light, uncertain of what tomorrow held but no longer afraid of it. Weeks passed. The media eventually caught wind of the story, a billionaire rescued from the woods by a single father. Some called it fate. Others called it a miracle. But to Michael it was something else entirely. It was redemption, because sometimes love doesn't return to remind you of what you lost, it returns to show you what you're still capable of giving. As the final scene fades, Michael lifts Lily into his arms. She smiles up at Weena, then looks at her father and says softly, "Daddy, are we a family now?" He glances at Elena, and for once she doesn't look away. "Yes," he says, his voice breaking but sure, "we always were." And as the wind rustles through the trees, the camera pans up to the sunrise, brighter now, full of color, a new beginning rising from the ashes of what was once broken.